Hello and welcome to this module on advanced economics. We are going to be looking at a number of topics, the meaning and nature of economics. We will also look at the topic on theory and demand. We're also going to look at the topic on theory of consumer behavior. We are going to study what we call the perfectly competitive market structures. We will also look at what we call the imperfect competitive market structures, and we also look at the labor market. The general objectives by the end of this module, I expect you to be able to have understood the meaning and nature of economics, explain various economic systems, understand the theory and demand of supply, also be able to explain the perfect and imperfect market structures, and also be able to understand and explain various players in the labor market. We begin by defining what is economics, and we are going to simply say that it is the study of how people choose to employ scarce resources. We have very many resources in a country. Some of them, or a big number of them, are scarce. Issues around finances, certain raw materials, certain minerals. So whatever little that we get is what we are emphasizing in economics, that we must try and use them prudently in order to be able to positively benefit all the citizens. We have the scope of economics. We can be able to say and identify that economics is classified into what we call the microeconomics and also what we call the macroeconomics. And when we talk about the microeconomics, it examines individual economic activities, industries, and their interactions. We have a number of areas that we study under the microeconomics. We have the theory of production. It involves an efficient conversion of input and output. We will be discussing that. The cost of production, that is also key. We will be looking at that. Monopoly, that is one of the major market structures where mono means one. So those are single owned entities and firms. And then we have oligopoly. It corresponds to the dominance of small entities in the market. And then we have what we call the macroeconomics, the study of economy as a whole. And when we are studying economies as a whole, we are looking at growth, the growth of the economy. We are looking at the business life cycle. We are looking at employment and unemployment. We are also looking at inflation and deflation. Inflation is the increase in prices of goods, and deflation is the vice versa, is that goods are able to reduce in terms of prices. Then we have what we call in economics, what we call the positive economics and the normative economics. What we can briefly say about the positive economics is that it relies on facts or information that is discussed under positive economics. We are simply saying that that information is factual, it is more objective, and we are looking at specific facts. So the statements that economists like yourself, now we can now call you an economist because you are studying this particular module. Those statements that you will be making, we are going to say that they are precise, they are descriptive, they are statements that we can be able to measure. We have an example on our final paragraph here that is saying that government funded healthcare surges public expenditure. That is a factual statement of saying anytime that the government puts money on healthcare, of course, the general expenditures of the government are going to go up. So that is something that is factual. Normative economics, on the other hand, it is based on theories, theoretical perspectives and situations. And the statements are just subjective. For example, we can say in the final statement, the paragraph, that the government should make available fundamental health care to every citizen. Yeah, so that is based on an individual thought. Mm. So the government can go ahead and do it or can decide not to do it. Yeah, so that is what we mean by normative kind of economics and discussions that involve economics. Then in economics, we have very important concepts that we discuss: the concept of scarcity, the concept of choice, the concept of opportunity cost. And scarcity we have just mentioned is simply to mean that uh, things are not readily available or resources are not readily available. Yeah, so the resource like the factors of production, labor, land, raw materials, factories and buildings, all of them we mean that they are limited in supply. And then we have what we call choice and opportunity cost. Now, because of the aspect of these items that we have just mentioned above being unavailable, what is going to happen? Individuals are going to incur cost, or they are going to have to make a choice on what to buy and what to forego. The cost forgone is what we are calling opportunity cost. So every economist will at some point be forced to make a choice to buy an item and forego the other because they do not have the enough amount of money to be able to buy both items. We have what we call the central economic problem, and we are saying there are many economic problems which we encounter every day: poverty, inflation, unemployment. Yeah. But when we are talking about the economic problem, we are referring to the overall problem of scarcity of resources. So the aspect of scarcity is really being emphasized in this particular discussion. So whatever we are calling the central economic problem, it is generally the element of scarcity of resources. And we are able to ask ourselves very fundamental questions: what commodities shall be produced? So we look at clothes, foods, cars. How shall goods be produced? It is also important for companies to answer that question. And also finally is for whom shall the goods be produced? Because of the scarcity of raw materials, the scarcity of finances, companies cannot just decide to manufacture and produce goods without any plans. And we have different economic systems that we also need to understand. We have what we call the pure capitalism, or what we call the free market economy. And we say that it is where the decision about what is produced is the outcome of millions of separate individual decisions made by consumers, producers, and owners of productive services. The decisions reflect private preferences and interest. What happens in the free market? It gives rise to what is called the consumer sovereignty. Now, a free market system is where individuals are free to buy, make decisions, uh, so they will end up determining the prices of those particular goods. We can look at various characteristics of what we call the free market system. We have ownership of means of production. So individuals are free to own the means of production. So you will find in this kind of a system land, capital, and enjoy incomes from them in form of rent. Then there is freedom of choice and enterprise. So people are free to make choices of what to consume, what to buy. And then we have self-interest and dominating motive. Firms aim at maximizing their profits. Workers aim at maximizing their wages. Landowners aim at maximizing their return for their land, and consumers maximizing their satisfaction. And of course, we have also competition. Economic rivalry or competition envisages a situation where in the market for each commodity there are a large number of buyers and sellers. So in the free market system, there is large numbers of buyers and sellers. So there is a lot of freedom. You buy where you want. And finally is reliance on price mechanism. Price mechanism is where prices are determined on the market by the supply and demand. So prices are based on supply and demand of items and goods. Then we have what we call the planned economic system, or the command economy is a system where all major economic decisions are made by the government, ministry, or planning organization. So this kind of an economic system is controlled by the government. That's very important for you to be able to note. And we are saying under the features that this kind of a market economy is completely relies on the state. And very importantly is that the government is going to decide what it is made, or what will be made, how it will be made, how much it will be made, or how much is made, and how distribution takes place. The resources or factors of production on behalf of the producers and consumers. Yeah, so this one is completely opposite of the first one. So there is no determination of prices due to demand and supply. Advantages of the planned economic system: use of resources. Central planning can lead to the full utilization of the factors of production. And then also we through the government giving directions, we may be able to have large scale productions, public services. Natural monopolies such as supply of domestic power and defense can be provided efficiently through central planning. So you will realize in a planned economic system, the government will run institutions that are like monopolies, because they would want to seek or take control of those kind of organizations. That, for example, those that are supplying power, those that are supplying defense items or security items. The other one is basic services. There are less concentration on making luxuries for those who can afford them, and greater emphasis on providing a range of goods. And finally, there are less dramatic differences in wealth and income distribution in the market economy. Some of the disadvantages of the planned economy or the planned system: number one, there is lack of choice. So consumers have little influence over what is produced. Then there is little incentive, since competition between different producers is not as important as in the market economy. There is no great incentive to improve existing systems. So you realize consumers may end up also not getting the right goods because there are no incentives. Then centralized control: because the state makes all the decisions, there must be large influential government departments. So there, and this of course is going to contribute to a lot of bureaucracies, so many procedures. If you want, for example, approval for supply of power, and the government is running these power institutions, sometimes because you do not have other options of things that you can do, it becomes bureaucratic, meaning you will take a lot of time to be able to get yourself connected. Then we have what we call the mixed economy. It's a combination of the free economy and the planned one. That is the major thing that you need to know there. So features of this economy is that it includes both elements of market and planned. Maybe we are going to understand that when we look at the advantages. Necessary services are provided in a true market economy. Services which we are not able to make profit would not be provided. And then we also have the element of incentives. Since there is private sector where individuals can make a lot of money, incentives still exist in the mixed economy. And then finally we have competition. Prices of goods and services in the private sector are kept down through the competition taking place. Then we have disadvantages of the mixed economy is large monopolies can exist in the private sector. And the other one is there is likely to be a lot of bureaucracy and red tape. So that will bring us to the end of topic number 1. This being advanced economics will also require you to read extensively for you to be able to understand various concepts.